Now, so moving to changing an operating model to be better suited to AI transformation within the organization is a task in itself. We then look at something that you've talked about right at the beginning of the conversation. You've talked about centralized versus federated. What becomes the right debate here?
Well, it ties into your earlier question about the talent, and I've lived through several of these models, actually also myself through, and I think, honestly, without making the debate, what do you need to do first? A centralized model enables you at least to have a few set of resources that you can, with a good target, inject into where it makes sense, and perhaps pull them out if you see it doesn't. But I think having that senior oversight also with regards to the value that we discussed is really important on this, having the company focus on this. Once you have proven the production ability of this, I think there are two things that happen. One is that now you want to scale, and therefore a lot of the governance operating model and even perhaps some of the resources that do that should naturally evolve into that function.
Right.
They know how to drive their needs. They are the ones who not only create the demand, but also now are more and more responsible for the operations of it. They might have also, each department or function might have different terms of policy applications that are not globally used. And I think once you have the first production slice that we talked about, some of the global policies now have been established and stay centrally or are now fixed part and can start to evolve into specific function or domain specific policies within these functions.
Yes.
So you might have a natural tendency to evolve into a federated model.
Right. And you've used an expression in the past that I really like, which is federation is something you must earn. And it does sound like there's a lot of hard work that's involved in that. Are there a sort of more explicit elements of the evolution that you can share with us?
It's not a must journey, but I think first this centralized team, because it's a small, highly agile team that can be deployed with senior focus onto these first production wins, defining the first kind of guardrails that either are functional or are company-wise, and then that learns fast. Then the second part of that evolution is probably hybrid, where the first operating elements of this production slice go into the function in the terms of they're now saying this is what we need next, et cetera, but you still might not have the scale and value creation that the resources should be deployed locally on this. And I think then when you see that at the scale and at the complexity that is required on the function, it is probably better that the federated divisions really take over both the resourcing and the operation and the demand aspects of these AI initiatives, and then enjoy again this agility, I think now per function. And the global need suddenly has shifted in a more established model. There might be still cross-functional learnings.
Yes.
But we see these as typical exchanges that don't require that, perhaps a very structural organizational setup.
Right. We started the conversation by saying that there was a lot of debate around operating model. We've come to the end of the conversation, and I'm thinking that it's very right that there should be a lot of debate around operating model, because there's clearly a lot of dependency on actually getting to the point where we've created the value. So, Ronnie, thank you so much for your insights. Once again, I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoy the conversation as well, and thank you for your time.